So following on just from what I've been talking about, um, we're talking about living in our own world, or we're talking about living in the world of the given. And it's very important to make this discrimination between the two. Probably this is one of the most fundamental discriminations I can make as a human being. And it's of extreme importance, because when I'm living in my own world, when I'm enclosed in a subjective world that is just being experienced, and there is no aliveness to facts, there's just this simply living out my experience of my life, and the basis of that experience of my life is just simply mental projections or notions. That is being an individual cut off from the whole. And what I was talking about just before was, was when we look at other people, when we become judgmental of them, when we go, oh, that's such an idiot. And when we do that, of course, we feel so superior. So we've got a notion of myself. I am so superior to that inferior person. Now, this is not being alive to facts. We may be experiencing that whole event as facts. I am superior and they are inferior. But whenever we feel in relation to other people, one up or one down, and we feel that that is the truth of the situation, we fairly clearly know that we're just simply involved with something that it might be emotionally gratifying, but it's not true. There's no aliveness to facts in that. Now, what about the world? We have built up notions about what the world is. Through our life, we've built up lots of notions. The world sucks, the world's a great place, the world's a bad place, the world's harsh. The whole point is that in our life, we have built up enormous amounts, piled up, if you like, notions about ourselves, what we really are, what we should be like, what we hope to be like. We've built up notions about what other people are like. They're good, they're bad, they're exploitive, whatever it is. These general notions, and we've built up notions about the world. And when these notions are the basis, they form the basis of our seeing, because remember I said that notions are ways of seeing. When we see from these notions, and that's all they are, just notions, because we see that way, that's what we see. Okay, it is there because we see it. But what I've been trying to talk about or make clear is the only basis, the starting point, the starting basis of living in this world is to become alive to the facts of this world. All the facts. We're not talking about, I'll only become alive to what I like. Now, this is not saying that people don't do destructive things. You can notice that people do destructive things. You can notice that they're under the sway of a certain type of thinking about life, and they're acting the way they act. It's not some Pollyanna-ish, oh, everything's fine. It's being alive to that fact, because when we can see that, when we see factually, we just see what's in front of us. Because it is given, we see it. But as soon as I move into judgments about that person, as soon as I make that person into a substance. Now, in Vedanta, there is only one substance, and that's awareness. All the rest are just comings and goings. So as soon as I make myself into a thing, I'm a thing that is lonely. I'm a thing that is upset. It's as soon as I see myself as a particular kind of person, I'm making myself into an object, and I'm making myself into a sad person, an angry person, a depressed person, or whatever. I have ceased to be alive to the facts. There might be, the facts might be loneliness, anger, or whatever in terms of emotional reaction. And I'm alive to those facts, knowing that what comes will always go. However, once I objectify myself, make myself into an object, I'm no longer being alive to facts. I'm just experiencing myself as what I take myself to be. I'm experiencing myself as how I see myself. Because I see it, it is there. The same goes with other people. We make them into things. They're idiots, they're fools, they're insensitive, they're this, they're that. As soon as we go into that type of thing, as soon as we make people into things, as if it's as if it's real. Our judgment of the person is what the person is. Now think about that. Is my judgment of what a person is that the person? When I say, oh, I can't stand that person, they're just so revolting. Well, what you've done is you've just made them into a thing. It's not factual. The alive to facts is they've done something and you're upset about it. That's the fact. But as soon as you make them into a thing, you're in trouble. Now the same goes with the world. As soon as you make the world into a thing, a substance, it is this, it is bad, it is good, it is whatever. All judgments as to it are inaccurate. It is what it is. The world is the given. It's a process, a very dynamic process that comes into being and goes out. It's an apparent universe, but to think that the world is our judgment of it is very problematic, because what happens is, again, because I see it that way, it is there. Whereas the other way that Swami Dayananda talks about, because it is there, I see it. And these are two important things. Now, so once we really begin to see the value of living in the world of the given, and once we start to understand, we also start to understand that it's only when we're alive to the facts of the given do we cease to be caught up in a very subjective cocoon that cuts us off from the whole. That we live a life of an isolated individual who strives. And what is that isolated individual striving to do? Striving to become some kind of fantasy that it considers is going to do it for them. So if I have a fantasy that I am an inadequate person, I will then try to become the fantasy of being an adequate person. That might mean lots of money, it might be prestige, it might be love and affection, it might be being gorgeous, whatever, all of these fictions, these guiding fictions that we are involved in. The only thing that frees us from that whole subjective thing is becoming alive to facts. And this is just simply becoming alive to facts. At any one moment we can become alive to facts. And the moment we become alive to facts, we cease to be a reacting individual, and we become an individual who is alive to what is happening. We become simple, and we begin to meet things with sameness of mind. And as I've said in the psychology of the Gita, meeting things with sameness of mind, being alive to the facts as they are, is called the practice of yoga.